So I'm head of communications for MoneyGram Haas F1 Team. Primary function is to look after all the public relations and all the media communications. That's both internal, external. That's managing the PR and media commitments for the drivers, for Guenther, working alongside our marketing department on partner liaison with media, setting the weekend schedule for a race weekend, and then anything else. We also do internal communications as well. So that's it in a nutshell. It's communications.
Yep.
And usually communications people are the worst at communicating with each other, but we have the responsibility to communicate with everybody else.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Track Limits podcast. We are here in Montreal and with my co-hosts Henny and Fevin. Today we have an incredible guest, a person who started his career in motorsport in 1998, joined the Haas F1 team in 2015 since the team started. Welcome, Stuart Morrison.
Woo! Thank you very much.
Brother.
Thank you for having me.
Now we've heard a dirty rumor, Stuart, which is you're Scottish, but you're also Canadian.
True, yes.
True Canadian.
I have both
passport.
passports, so
Yeah.
I rock them both. I did 12 years living in Canada, and they gave me a passport for my troubles.
Incredible. And it must be great to be in Montreal then?
Yeah, I love coming here. Yeah.
Incredible.
I mean, I know the city so well, and my children were born here, so it's just that familiar feeling every time you come back. And it's always great when you see other people on the team coming and maybe experiencing Montreal for the first time, and them getting to enjoy it. So yeah, I love it. Definitely better to come back in June than December.
Yeah.
Oh, any day.
100%. I always, when people say, when should I come visit Toronto or Montreal? I'm like, between June to August.
Yeah. These guys always plan to just leave during the
Oh
winter.
yeah, we're not here in the
They
winters.
flee.
We're snowbirds.
Yeah, I get asked a lot, would I move back? I'm like, I don't think I would now. I absolutely love it, but to do winters again,
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I think I've done my time.
Incredible. Well, we have about 45 minutes here. We're going to break up our podcast into 3 sections. Q1, all related to your career, kind of racing in particular. The second is actually diving into you as a professional, as a person. What makes you tick? How did you get into this career, etc. And then finally, the rapid fire round, which is our favorite round.
Yeah, of course.
We're just going to pepper you with questions, see how fast you can go.
Cool.
Perfect. Q1, first question. In 30 seconds, tell us a little bit about your career. Bam.
My
Turn
career
it to a hot
to date,
round.
30
Yeah.
seconds.
career
done.
to date, or what I do now.
Let's start just with what you do now.
What
What
I
are
do
kind
now.
of like the day-to-day
Okay.
responsibilities look like?
So I'm head of communications for MoneyGram Haas F1 Team. Primary function is to look after all the public relations and all the media communications. That's both internal, external. That's managing the PR and media commitments for the drivers, for Guenther, working alongside our marketing department on partner liaison with media, setting the weekend schedule for a race weekend, and then anything else. We also do internal communications as well. So that's it in a nutshell. It's communications.
Yep.
And usually communications people are the worst at communicating with each other, but we have the responsibility to communicate with everybody else.
And does your role fluctuate, obviously, depending on whether you're on track or off track? Does it look very different?
It's kind of like a race weekend is a culmination of everything you've been doing in advance of the race weekend. So basically my schedule is like a playbook. So once we hit the track on a Thursday, it's literally everything's written down, and it's just then going through the order. Thursday is the media day, so that's when we have our busy commitments. And then Friday to Saturday, Sunday, everything is then obviously related to what's happened on track. The media sessions, the drivers talking about how they did, or the bullpen appearance after qualifying and after the race. But then during the week, if we're in the office, it's a lot of forward planning, looking ahead. At the moment we're looking at Vegas and Abu Dhabi already. You're kind of looking at things 6 months in advance. So yeah, the office side of it is a little bit, I don't want to say mundane. That's actually when you have the time to focus on everything.
Yeah.
Because when you're at the track, so much of it is planned, but then so much of it is also then reactive, because you never know what's actually going to happen. So as much as we have the team PR schedule, if things happen, you've got to be able to react to it. And I've had a lot of experience in that.
Oh, we would want
I'm
to
sure
hear
you're going
them.
to get into specifics, but
Yes, we'll probably get into that. But before we do, what would you consider to be one of your biggest achievements throughout your career so far?
2 main things. When I lived here in Canada, I worked for myself. So I had 12 years self-employed, and it was a case of if I wasn't working, then mortgage wasn't getting paid, that kind of thing. So I was able to sustain a career, working in motorsport, worked a lot with Canadian drivers, worked in IndyCar, different things. So that personally is one of the things I'm proudest of. But that culminated in me then speaking to Haas about an opportunity. And then really, to be able to be, the head of comms at Haas is a great honor. It's a privilege. The way the sport has gone anyway, Formula One was always big. It was always the top, but now it's just gotten even bigger, which brings different challenges with it. But I think to get into that position, and there are only 10 heads of communications in Formula One, and obviously we all have great teams around us, but I think that's probably what I'd
there a group chat?
There is a group chat.
What goes down?
Pretty much all business. There's times where I write something and then I'm like, no, I'm going to delete
So
that.
you're not sending gifts or
No. And if anybody's going to do it, it would be me. But I've literally censored myself so many times because you see some questions being asked and you're like, why are you asking that question? And I've always got to reply. I'm like, no, I don't think this is
the communication in the communication group chat is very good.
Yeah. I mean, I was setting up a call with the head of comms at F1 the other day, and it was just one of those. It got to 11 o'clock, which was our agreed time, and then it got to 2 minutes past. Then I'm texting him saying, are you calling me or am I calling you? And that's kind of how it is with communications people. Like, we just do it for everybody else, but then when it comes to doing it for ourselves, we're not always the greatest.
You're like, where is this a Google link? Where
do I find this?
Well, and there's so many different formats you can use these days as well. It's just, anyway, you have to try and spell it out.
Fair enough.
Yep. But on the other side now, you've worked with amazing drivers, David Coulthard, Romain Grosjean, and who else? James Hinchcliffe,
Dario Franchitti, Alan Nish, Robert Wickens, Kevin Magnussen, obviously,
and Hulkenberg now.
And
who was the most fun out of all of them? And who gave you the most headache?
Okay, so 2 questions there. James Hinchcliffe, the most fun.
Nice.
I got to work with James since he was a teenager and worked with him all the way up into IndyCar. So that, again, from a professional perspective, was very satisfying, was to be able to, I mean, he's got such a personality and charisma. Anyway, I think you guys have met him.
Oh, yeah.
So that speaks for itself. So I was just kind of pointing him in the direction and trying to raise his media profile. I didn't have to do any work with him in terms of, you need to, come out of your shell a little bit. He was already there with a strong personality, so he was a lot of fun. And then obviously going up to IndyCar with him and seeing what he was able to accomplish there was very, I was just happy for him. He comes from a really great family, so that was cool. The most headaches, probably Romain in his day, because, Romain could be quite a challenge sometimes. When everything's going great, it's all great. And when things aren't going great, that's when, our job is probably at its most challenging, because you're basically asking people to do things that they don't want to do.
Right.
And if they've had a really bad qualifying, you're then having to take them into the bullpen and they have to go talk about it. So that can be challenging. But, when you work with enough athletes, you understand their traits and, when's good and when's not good, or how, somebody like Romain would just sometimes need a couple of minutes just to kind of process everything. And then he would go in and usually he'd be fine. But it's just, there's other times where you're just like, this is not going to be fun at all.
And are you giving them like talking points and really like kind of coaching, or are they
not in terms of straight after qualifying or the race? They kind of know how they've done. It might well be that you brief them on a couple of little things just so you think that the engineers might not have told them, but usually not in that situation. Obviously, before we do our press commitments on a Thursday, you'll be briefing them on the communications guidelines that maybe Formula One have given us, anything else that we have going on in the team situation, with partners, you give them a bit of a briefing. But there's a bit of a stigma out there that, in modern Formula One, there's PR people controlling drivers, and I actually don't see a lot of it. There's times where you have to brief them and say, don't say certain things, but it's not. We've always been, and I guess it stems from Guenther's management style down, it's you're allowed to speak your mind. We don't hold people back. Obviously, you have to be respectful in situations. You have to be mindful of certain parameters subject to what the topic is. But I don't think there's a massive amount of control in terms of these PR people. People always say, well, we're in the background. Well, yeah, we're in the background because that's our job to then kind of monitor things and then take them away. But, people often ask me, why are you guys recording everything? And from our perspective, it's yes, so we have a record of it. But for the bullpen after quality in the race, we're lifting the driver quotes from there for our press release. So there is a function to us being in there.
And in terms of even F1 introduced that new policy where during race weekends, drivers and personnel can't talk about politics, religion, and stuff like that. What do you think about that? Is that something that needs to be removed or addressed?
I don't think it's that they can't talk about it, because that would be a very backwards move. I think everybody, these guys have a platform. They should be allowed to use it. They're able to do it in other sports. I think it's just Formula One. And some of the old management style was, and now the guys at FOM are much more open to it in that respect. I think as Guenther always says, as long as you do everything respectfully, then there shouldn't be an issue, and we should absolutely be encouraging it because they have a voice, and in the same way that basketball players, football, whoever it is, why shouldn't I don't think we can kind of cage them. I think there's maybe that thought process, because in Formula One you are literally a walking billboard. You know, you've got a lot of brand names on it, and that's paying the wages. It's paying the wages of the team. But I think we're living definitely in a much more enlightened time with a lot of work to do. But I think a lot of partners are looking for drivers who have a bit of a voice, and with a social platform, they know they've got an audience that they can reach out to people, and that's the greatest thing in that respect, that you can kind of circumnavigate people if you want, because you can just put your own content out.
Speaking of the evolution of F1, like, where do you see the future of Formula One?
I think it's only going to get bigger. How long that growth curve is going to go on for, I don't know. I mean, obviously it's really hitting its stride in America now. We got the Vegas race coming up later this year. I think we have to be careful that we don't oversaturate the market. I'm personally a believer that 20 races, 22 races is an absolute maximum. We're going to go up to 24 for definite next year. I think you run that risk of becoming a bit like NASCAR or baseball, where you can tune in out, you can miss 3-4 races, and especially in a year of dominance, if one guy or one team is particularly doing well, you can tune out for a few races and then come back to it. The diehard fans will always watch it, but that would be my only concern. It's just, how do you kind of keep it contained that you don't ultimately have people getting bored of it.
And then I did hear, I think I saw an article, it might have been the Guardian or the Daily Mail, but they were talking about like the Americanization of Formula One, right? And like they were even talking about the Miami Grand Prix, where they had people come out and, you know, it felt like a football game, really, like the walkouts and everything. And it kind of, the article really talked about how this is not Formula One, this is not the tradition. Like, what about people like that who might be, you know, thinking more in like the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, they're stuck in thinking about Formula One in that way? Do they need to change their views, or is that something that 100%?
Things move on. There's different ways, and there's different markets want to see things presented a different way. So if that works for the American marketplace, you know, if you don't want to watch, you know, what you might think is a cringy 5-minute driver introduction, don't watch it. Don't be looking for something to go hating on. Just, if you know it's coming up, don't watch it, and then start watching the race.
I mean, more recently, you have such a younger audience watching it, like the Gen Zs, the millennials.
Yeah.
Oh my god. They have such a high purchasing power. They are the one, and women. There are so many women watching. So when you're thinking about like the different groups of people that are now watching, my opinion, I think that we should not Americanize it, but continue to do these like newer, more fresh, inclusive ideas. I love it. In my opinion.
You had a lot of people that were against Netflix at the start. They were like, no, this is going to be too intrusive. And you know, look what it's done for the sport. Huge. You know, it's not single-handedly responsible for everything that's happened in America, but it's a massive contributing factor to it, and it's brought in a swathe of people who'd never ordinarily watched Formula One. So that's a good thing. You know, it's then how do you kind of maintain that interest? How do you evolve it? And they've got some really good people at Formula One at the moment, and you know, they are looking ahead. Obviously, they're looking at new projects. Obviously, there's the TV show that's been announced. There's a Brad Pitt movie coming out. So there's different ways of just getting it to more people. And I think with Liberty's ownership, they're a lot more attuned to how it's going to work, and then how, you know, it's not just what are we doing now, what are we doing in 2 years, 4 years. So we might not know what they've actually got planned right now, and that's a good thing. You know, why should they tell everybody everything? But there's some clever people there, and they will do what they can to kind of maintain the sport and maintain the interest. And you know, we're reaching a much more diverse audience these days, and yes, there absolutely needs to be more done at the junior level, and it will take a long time for a lot of stuff but the work is being done now, which is a positive. And are we behind? 100%, but it is being done now. It's being talked about. The right people are involved in it. So I think for the longevity of it, but it's also one of these things. You're either into it or you're not. You know, I mean, my children only know me as being somebody who's involved in racing. They couldn't give a crap. You know, it's not something they're particularly interested in. You know, my daughter just started watching Drive to Survive with me a couple of weeks ago. She was like, "Oh, I'll watch a couple of episodes with your dad," and you know, she's just kind of looking out for me. And but then, you know, she starts asking a whole bunch of questions. So I can see the impact that it can have. But yeah, you're either into it or you're not.
We've also heard a rumor that the mics and the crew kind of like are like chameleons. You don't really see them or hear them. You have to be careful. Does it add more work to you, or is it like a headache?
They're very visible because
they're just everywhere.
Cameras and a boom mic. It doesn't add. We're just going about our work. That's the thing. So it doesn't really add any work to us. I mean, I get involved in some of the planning of things and just make sure that the team are aware. You know, if it's a race weekend where they're going to be embedded with us, I make sure that, you know, chief mechanic knows, chief engineer, everybody, and give them a heads up that they might be asked to wear a microphone. I almost said wire there, a microphone. It feels like a wire sometimes. You got to. Sometimes when I'm mic'd up, I'm like, I'm wearing
Yeah.
So
It could pick up that sound.
yeah, they can. So yeah, you have to be careful with that stuff. But it's a case of, it's not really. I know some teams are like, it's a hassle, but we have to look at what it's given to the sport. And we as a team, we were definitely embraced by the Netflix people early on, and we embraced them because we were a new team. We didn't have 15, 20 years of tradition of saying no to things. We were very open because we're like, this could actually be good for us. And the fact that Mercedes and Ferrari weren't in that first season definitely enabled us to get a little bit more of that kind of audience share. And then when they did come into it in season 2, it's because they realized how it had taken off, and they missed a trick, unfortunately.
I would also envision that it's much more like exposure for your sponsors and the brands that you're working with.
Yeah, it's kind of, you can't guarantee them that they're going to get it because ultimately it's not Netflix's job to show
the sponsors,
title sponsors and all the rest of it. And that side of the sport isn't overly sexy in terms of entertainment. But there's definitely by default they get exposure, and so that's a benefit. And we have a lot of commercial entities that approach us because the success of the series, and they see how Guenther. The exposure that he gets, and that
he's
brings
the star.
people.
He's Bevan's favorite character.
He's my favorite.
I will never say he's the star. But he is definitely one of the key protagonists.
Then flipping gears, I want to talk also about maybe times where things aren't the best in the job, right? So I think kind of earlier in the year, near the start of the season, there was this alleged rumor around this like Russian collusion with the Haas F1 team. How do you wake up to days like that? Like, what was the atmosphere in the boardroom when you go and meet the other team members about that?
Ultimately, Guenther and I talk daily on things anyway, so we're pretty much attuned to each other in terms of how we would deal with a situation. And, the situation you're referring to was just, it was inaccurate reporting of the highest level. And so, but again, we have to just take our time, make sure that we get our ducks in a row. And then when you're ready to present your information, you present it. So there's a lot of media that would sometimes rather be first and inaccurate with a story than second and accurate. Right. And so the trick in communications, certainly in my job, is just to make sure that you don't have a knee-jerk reaction to something and blurt something out or do something that you haven't thought. So I will always, and that's ultimately one of the lessons I've learned in my career, is just you present information when you are ready, not when journalists want it, because everybody wants everything yesterday. And so just get your facts together and then you present it. And then more often than not, when you present it, the situation will go away because there's a lot of frenzy around different situations, but when you present people with the facts, there's nowhere else to go with it.
And then how do you know what stories to respond to and which ones not to respond to?
It's usually pretty obvious. If you see a gathering storm, you kind of know, right, you're either going to get ahead of it and put out a statement, or you just know that you can address things, say with Guenther's press session on a Thursday at track. So if something, subject to what it is, if it was to break on a Monday and a Tuesday, I know I can cover that off on a Thursday at track. So I don't have to do it. Other times you may be like, right, we need to get a statement out. So it really just depends. The good thing is we've had plenty of experience of it. So.
That's good.
And how do you guys handle sensitive information? Whether it's you guys just signed a driver and there's an announcement period. How does leaks work in your world?
I think in my mind, there's always an inevitability that something's going to get out because in this day and age, nobody can keep a secret. So
I can.
I'll sometimes have on my media WhatsApp chat, somebody will maybe text me and say, "Hey, can you comment on this rumor?" And I always write back to them saying, "Have you ever heard me comment on a rumor?" They're like, "No." I'm like, "Well, there you go." I said, "If you want to ask your question a different way." Ask me it a different way, but don't ask me if I'm going to comment on a rumor. But it's there's obviously a trust process you have to trust. But in this day and age, I think everything pretty much gets out, and so you just have to kind of stay quiet on it or not comment on it until you present all the information. And sometimes people only have half the story; they don't necessarily have the whole story. And that's fine, but you can't stress about it in this day and age because there's so many different forms of communication. Inevitably, signing a driver or a title sponsor, there's so many people involved in that process. Or you might have to have a meeting and somebody sees you having the meeting. It's just you just have to kind of go with it. So you kind of know. And I'm very fortunate with our team that Guenther and I say we speak a lot, and so he's very good at keeping me up to date on situations. So there's not much that I don't know of that's happening. But even then, there's times where something does come out. I'm like, is this true? And he's like, oh yeah, did I not tell you about that? I'm like, no, you didn't. That could have been useful to know. But
incredible. Final few questions in Q1. How do you manage sponsor requests? I bet sponsors come in. They might have evolving requests over the course of a season. How do you manage their expectations?
Well, I'm a little less involved in that side because we've got a marketing department now at Haas that takes care of a lot of that stuff. But I set the driver's schedule on race weekends, and if it is a partner request, I usually am the guy that goes to the driver manager to ask for the time. So yeah, it just really depends. But we've been very fortunate that we've got at the moment we've got a great roster of partners. They're all a lot of them are consumer facing, which is great for us to get the brand out there. You want to help these people activate. They're in Formula One for a reason. They want the global exposure. They want the access to the glitz, the glamour, the technical side. It could be the STEM side of things. Whatever it is, there's so many different facets of. It's almost not just about the car going around anymore. Yeah. It's about everything else. Yeah. That's where the pressure is on teams and certainly marketing and communications departments. It's no longer, are we going to get press coverage out of this? Because with social media, we're all our own content houses now. And so a lot of them will come to us because of the audience that we have. Yeah. I think combined, we're still small, but for a small team, we punch above our weight. I think we've got a combined audience across our platforms of 4 or 5 million, which is huge in this.
Yeah, you're killing it. And also some of the social posts that they're
hilarious.
They're hilarious.
No, we've got a good tone. We've got some great creative people that work for us, which is good. They understand the flow of the team, and that's why I'm not necessarily a big agency guy. I like people to come in and actually work for the team because then they understand the heartbeat and they're privy to the culture and all the rest of it. So, but we're up against social media teams who have agencies on board, or Red Bull have got 5 videographers and you name it. We don't have that, but I think we definitely punch above our weight, which is good, and partners like that. And we also have a team principal who doesn't take himself too seriously, and so we can have a little bit of fun in some memes and all the rest of it, and he's pretty cool about that as well. So, but yeah, from the commercial side, you only get out of it what you put into it, and we're very fortunate that at the moment we've got a great roster of partners that are in it to actually activate. And it might not be in terms of advertising campaigns or consumer things. It could just be bringing hospitality, people to hospitality. It could be bringing people to the factory, whatever it is. So it's we're always. It's fun. Sometimes on a race weekend, you're like, ugh, and drivers. Miami for us was our busiest ever Grand Prix in 7 seasons. The Miami schedule, there was literally something happening every night. There was things happening in the morning, but the drivers understand. They're fortunate that for I'd imagine Mercedes, Red Bull, that could be a normal weekend. Yeah. For us, it was a bit more of an abnormal weekend, but that's what these guys are paid to do, and they have to go and smile and do the right things. Yeah. But they get it, which is the important thing.
And what was the most outlandish request that you guys received from a sponsor?
Question.
You don't have to name the company, but
the request. I can't think of anything that's been really outlandish. We've had some pitches presented to us that we all look across the desk and we're just like, they really want to do this?
For real? Yeah.
We also know how the drivers are going to react to situations. But then that's our job to guide these people and say, this actually isn't going to be the thing that's going to get the best out of the drivers. Yeah. It's going to be X, Y, and Z. And it's the same with media, when they come to us and maybe the request, and sometimes just like, actually, this could be like Kevin and Roman were a good example. When they actually realized that they liked each other and didn't have to kind of keep fighting on track, when we put them together for media events, they were really quite comedic with each other, and they had a good kind of bromance going on, and that's better value. If people see that the guys are actually having fun and not feeling forced to be there, it's much more organic and more authentic. And I think that's the hardest thing to achieve in this day and age, is something with authenticity, because people are paying a lot of money to be involved, and so there's a degree that they expect people to do things. But if people can actually come across, and that's why people like Danny Rick and all the rest are just so, he must have his bad days, but when he's on, he's really on. And,
genuine.
We're very fortunate. I mean, Nico at the moment is fantastic. You put the camera on him and he gets it straight away, and that's really cool. And Roman was very good at that as well. He could be having a really bad day, but then the minute he had to go do an engagement, he would just turn it on. And at the end of the day, that's all you're asking them to do. But it's better if everyone's happy and up for it.
Enjoying it.
Yeah, exactly.
So no crazy TikTok dances.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I can't so there's nothing that immediately springs to mind, but I'm sure it will come. The more partners that we have, the more that'll happen. I mean, I don't know if you saw in Miami, but Palm Angels are one of our sponsors, and so they let the drivers come into one of the stores, and I think Nico raided that place because every day he came into the track, he had a different Palm Angels outfit on. God. But again, that's great. It wasn't, Nico, you must put this on. He was just like, I love this stuff. And so it looked very natural, him coming to the paddock wearing it. And we actually, we had to go into hospitality and say, right, guys, you need to take this stuff off now because you need to wear the t-shirt that's got the rest of the team partners on board. But again, it's vindication that if it's the right fit, people are engaged with it. So, and that's authentic and that's important.
Love it. Well, that is Q1. Henny, rating?
Sector?
Green.
All right, green. Well, made it through to Q2.
Okay, good.
We'll see if we
Doesn't
get by
happen
that.
often.
Oh, God.
Oh, wow.
With me, I mean.
Okay, mic drop.
Sorry, I had 2021 flashbacks.
You are hearing Stuart Morrison. We'll be back with Q2.
everyone. That's right. I'm talking to you two ladies. I'm excited to tell you that this podcast is sponsored by Manscaped. By we, I mean my husband, Michael. And as his partner, I do notice these things. Would you say you've noticed a difference since you've used Manscaped?
It's been smooth sailing, to say the least.
I would say. Manscaped is trusted by more than 9 million men worldwide for their trimmers, hygiene, and shower formulations, and premium boxers.
The product I want to talk to you today is the new Handyman. It's a compact face shaver and it's a credible grooming tool that delivers a quick, close shave.
And because we believe in Manscaped so much, we've worked out a special deal for all of you. Whether you're buying for yourself, your partner, boyfriend, brother, friend, whomever, go to manscaped.com and use the code TLimits20 at checkout to get 20% off and free shipping. That is TLimits20.
Welcome back to the Track Limits podcast. We are with Stuart Morrison, who has made it through to Q2. Feeling great?
Yep. I think we might get to Q3. I'm feeling good.
Knock on wood, knock on wood, knock on wood. Let's take you back, though. Before F1, before everything, growing up as a kid, was motorsport a passion of yours? Was this always something you wanted to do growing up?
No, I was exposed to F1 races just because we'd watch some of them on a Sunday. That was all. So, I mean, that was going back a long time, but mainly in the 80s, watching people like Senna, Prost, Mansell. I always kind of backed the British guys. So, but I was never mad about it. I never had pictures on the wall of Formula One cars or anything like that. And it was more just when I was at university, I was kind of thinking, well, what am I going to do? I did a Bachelor of Arts in Film and Media Studies, but I don't know what I was going to do with that. And then it was really just in my final year, I was kind of like, I'm getting more into this Formula One stuff. And David Coulthard was racing at the time, so naturally followed a fellow Scot, who's somebody I know now and count as a really good guy. So that's kind of funny how life takes you. And then I did the classic thing. I was like, well, I'll write off to some Formula One teams, and of course they all wrote back. So the ones that did write back saying you need to get experience. It's a real chicken and egg. How do you get the experience without somebody giving you the opportunity? But then I was just very fortunate that a couple of months after I graduated, Jonathan Palmer, the ex-Formula One driver, was setting up a new series in the UK. I wrote to him, and just said, listen, I've just graduated, but I'm keen to do something. And he literally wrote back and said, you can be my press officer.
Wow.
And that was it. I went down for a meeting with him, and I moved down to England about 3 weeks later, and that was it. Been in motorsport ever since.
Incredible.
Wow.
And was there anything, sorry about that, was there anything that kind of made you very inclined towards Formula One in particular, as opposed to like maybe now going back to like IndyCar or going to like another racing series?
No, I wasn't driven to get to Formula One in that respect. I'm obviously, it's the pinnacle of the sport. So there's many things that you have better opportunities, better pay, all the rest of it, and there's an element of prestige if you can say that you work for a Formula One team. People think it's cool. They don't see all the hard work that goes on behind the scenes, but it's a case of you just know it's the pinnacle of motorsport. And I was first properly exposed to it because Justin Wilson won the Palmer Audi Championship that year in '98, and then obviously he got into Formula One in 2003, and I was asked to do the press he had a special investment scheme set up to raise the money that would get him the Minardi drive, so I did all the PR for that, and then I did his PR when he raced for Minardi and Jaguar in 2003, so that was my first exposure to kind of actively working with a driver in Formula One. So since then I've always kind of known people and been involved, and then I worked for TW Steel, the watch company, and they sponsored a couple of teams. So the only thing that was kind of missing from my resume, not that I was going after it, was the opportunity to work for a team. And because I was living in Canada at the time when Haas was created, I thought, well, that could be a job opportunity to move down to the States. And then when I went and saw Guenther, they were like, no, we're going to base the PR team over in England. I'm like, okay then. So went back home and said, guess what, we're going to be moving. And that was it. So.
Yeah. But now Guenther lives in North Carolina?
Yeah, he's lived in North Carolina for 17 years.
Wow.
What advice would you give to anyone that's thinking about a path or a career in communications?
Motorsport communications. Motorsport, yeah. Because the thing is, that I'm a PR guy by default. I kind of fell into it. I wasn't in love with it. I think I do okay with it, but I've no desire to go work for a healthcare firm or a financial institution. And I'm not. No. I wouldn't be able to do that, and it wouldn't interest me. But I think, like I did, you have to seek out opportunities. I saw that Jonathan was setting up that series. I read about it in Autosport, and I wrote to him. I didn't wait till I saw a job because I didn't know what a press officer did. I had no exposure to it. But you just knock on doors and just make things happen for yourself. Don't wait for the phone to ring because it's not going to happen. So again, the example I used when Haas was set up, I I was doing PR for James Hinchcliffe at the time, and I knew he was backed by GoDaddy. GoDaddy had a relationship with Stuart Haas Racing. Stuart Haas Racing, obviously the sister team for Gene's F1 team. So I joined the dots and got in front of Guenther by working my connections and said, I'm interested. This is the experience I have. I've worked on both sides of the Atlantic. I've dabbled in Formula One before, and I know the North American marketplace. And the dialogue started from there. I did not wait until they were going to advertise for PR people to join the team. So I was already ahead of the queue.
Yeah.
That worked.
So that's the advice I would give, is just keep seeking out those opportunities. Don't apply for jobs but try and get the experience somehow. Go, if you find a driver and offer to do social media. I mean, the landscape's very much changed. When I was working with younger drivers, it was to build a profile, and that's when there was more of a hardcore media contingency of local media, regional media, national, all the rest of it. Now, social media, if you're remotely switched on, you can put your own personality out there. The involvement of PR people is less so. It's maybe just more about credibility or whatever, or just help with commercial things like that. But if you're smart enough now, you could, I couldn't go back and do what I used to do because I'm not social media savvy enough to guide somebody in that respect. I'm not that interested in doing it either.
LinkedIn.
But, yeah, exactly. Facebook. I'm really no, I'm kidding.
Hey, don't age yourself.
Oh
no.
Friends reunited. So.
Yep. And on the flip side, was there a moment where you said, I failed, I'm about to lose my job? And how did you even bounce back from that?
I can also say no.
Nice.
You have times where, I might have, maybe a driver like, oh, you should have told me that. And you're kind of like, yeah, you're right. I maybe should have. So it's just, you're constantly learning in that respect. So I'm constantly trying to get better. It can be very easy, especially because the nature of Formula One with so many races, it's wash, rinse, repeat. Race weekend is a race weekend. But it's the case of, I can't think of anything where I've really messed up in that respect. It's more just times where I've kicked myself that I should have been better or been a little bit more switched on in terms of briefing somebody. But again, you make a lot of assumptions. I had a situation with Kevin last year, a couple of years ago, where he thought he had a penalty for one thing, but it was for a different thing. And I just assumed after the race that his engineers, or even during the race, would have told him what that penalty was for. And then when he was doing the pen, he was talking about it. I'm like, he's talking about the wrong thing here. So when we went to do the next one, I was like, you got the penalty for X, Y, and Z. He was like, no, I thought it was, I was like, no. So it's just, right, so it's just, so it just makes remind you to stay a little bit more switched on and never assume that the engineers have maybe told him something. But no, there's not been a major failing yet.
Not yet. Not yet.
Not yet.
And throughout your career, or even just now, have there been any roadblocks or challenges? We always, in this podcast, we talk about resiliency and then comeback story. Have there been any situations like that where you've had to overcome?
Not really. I think the closest thing I could probably relate it to is just the most intense part of my job that I've ever had, and that was when Roman had his crash in Bahrain, because we were obviously scheduled to announce Mick and Nikita that week, and Roman then had his accident, so there was the immediacy of dealing with the accident. And then the next day it was sorting out, obviously Guenther and I had gone to see him in the hospital. We knew he was obviously fine. We got to the track, and then we got Pietro in, so we were going to announce Pietro as the reserve, stepping up and replacing Roman. And then at the same time, we had to kind of push back the announcements about Mick and Nikita, who were in Bahrain, because obviously F2 was racing at the time there as well. So we had to deal with all of that. At the same time, giving the updates on Roman's progress. And then obviously Roman came to the track on the Friday, and we did our first public media dealings with that. So again, it was just, there was many spinning plates, and we worked some long hours that week just to make sure that the communications was, and there's so many other people that you have to let know as well, driver managers, and at the same time being sensitive to Roman's situation. I mean, the guy had gone through a life-changing incident, thankfully relatively unscathed. So I was properly burnt out by the end of that week. It was just exhausting, and I'm sure I've probably got some PTSD from it in some respect, but it was just because you care and you want to make sure that the job's done right, and you got to keep team people updated, sponsors. There's so many different plates, and we were getting media coming out of the woodwork, like Good Morning America, so people that wouldn't ordinarily touch Formula One, because this made headlines around the world. And it's just that there's that pressure to try and do the right thing and making sure that the right people get the story. I mean, I had some journalists come to me who are Formula One regulars but have never written a story about Haas, and all of a sudden, guess what? And it's like, well, no, I'm going to put things towards the people that actually cover us on a regular basis. I think that's only fair and just. But I think the best thing that we did that week was just let Roman tell the story. So we did obviously it was still in the COVID time, so we had a Zoom call on the Friday, and we must have had about 60 to 80 journalists on the Zoom call. And I just said to Roman, we're going to start this off. I just want you to tell everybody what happened, rather than going straight into Q&A, because when I'd been at the hospital with Guenther on the Monday and Roman gave his account, it was so unbelievable and just so moving in that respect as well. Everything he thought he was going through, and obviously he then talked about it on the Netflix series, so I don't need to repeat that. But that's what I had Roman do to start the press conference, and it couldn't have actually gone any better, because there was this silence, and many people texted me afterwards to say that was actually unlike anything else we've done before. So it was about, and it's not a yay, me pat on the back, but it was just being smart enough to know when to let him speak and when to then have, and the fact that I think he spoke to begin with for 10 minutes before we actually then opened up into questions. But just so there was no misunderstanding, or ultimately no repetition of the same question, trying to find the same thing. So, but yeah, that week was a very, very intense week. But again, you look back on it now and you realize that's actually quite satisfying. And the thing I will say about the accident when it happened, that I was reached out to by a lot of the other PRs from other teams and said, listen, if we can help you with anything, we know this must be a crazy time. And I've got a lot of good friends at other teams, and the fact that the community kind of comes together, and we've seen that in other times and other situations where drivers have been injured and whatnot. And that, to me, the thing I love most about my job in motorsport is the community. It's the people that are there. I've got some great friends for life, drivers, media, team personnel. That for me is what it's about, building those relationships. And working with the media, if you build the successful relationships, it can make your job easier, because you're not always going to keep everybody happy, but you're always going to have that kind of bedrock group that you can trust with information, or if you need to back channel some information just to get something out there that you can't say on the record, but you can slip on the side, and then it becomes something that's obviously good as well. So,
but I mean, when you're kind of stripped away from your family and the things that kind of give you comfort, it's really nice to know that you have a community that really is like a support system.
No, I was genuinely touched by it, because these people don't have to do that, and there's so much competition to outdo the other guy. But I mean, I worked quite a bit in IndyCar, obviously, with James, and that's very much a community, and there's a more community of drivers there, I think, as well. Formula One less so on the driver front, but it was a case of just to see that and to have people. And so I'm very mindful now that when I see a situation happening, I will say, is there anything I can do to help? And more often than not, you don't want the help. You want to know that you can do it yourself, but just to know that. And sometimes it's just being able to talk to people. I mean, we're in this enlightened time where we all talk about mental health, and just to be able to have somebody, because in Formula One, you only see what you see. So the mechanics only see us maybe kind of coming in and taking a picture and posting it, and they think, oh, easy job, but they don't see everything else. In the same way that we don't see all the hard work that they're necessarily putting in. So sometimes you can only talk to somebody who understands your role, and that other person is another comms person at another team. The Mercedes challenge is different from the Haas challenge, but ultimately the environment that we work in is similar, and the skills are all transferable. And
then when it comes to like keeping a level head and kind of staying positive, I mean, I think with Haas in particular, you guys have obviously had tough times, but you've also had really good times, right? Like Kevin's pole last year, even back to 2016, like the first few races in 2016, I think Roman took like P5 or P6 in Australia, and like it looks like on an up and up. Like during moments though where things are really tough, where the team might be going through a bit of a drought, how does the team stay positive? How do you stay positive to be super excited to go to work and feel like you are kind of in a winning mindset?
Yeah, it's a very good question, a very relevant question. I think a lot of it, as far as the team morale, is communication. It's people like Guenther being able to advise on what's happening with, either next year's car or whatever. For example, 21, we knew the car was going to be nowhere because it had no investment in it. But we very clearly communicated, even at the end of 2020, we're not going to invest in the 21 car. I mean, with the regulations and all that was going on, it was a case of, and with the COVID situation, it was simply a case of, it's not worth investing in this car to try and gain a tenth of a second, which means we're P16 instead of P17. So we got that message out that it's going to be a struggle. It's not going to be pretty. And we have 2 rookie drivers. It was what it was. But then in 2022, we hit the ground with the VF22, and Kevin scores 5th place in Bahrain. And then subsequently we scored more points in the team. So we bounced back from being, that was the only time we finished last in the championship. I don't think as an organisation we get enough credit for the fact that we're now in our 8th season, but we've only actually finished last in the championship one year. And it was the year that we, hand in the air, said we're not going to do any investment into this car or into this package. And we came back with a stronger package, which was good, and we scored points. So it's a case of just making sure that people are aware of what's happening in the team, and the direction it's going is a huge thing. From my own personal perspective, it's just simply a case of I enjoy what I do, and like everybody, you have good days and bad days, and you have days where you're stuck in traffic, or you find yourself at another airport and you're like, why am I doing this? But you get those moments where you're just like, yeah, this is really, it's a privilege to be able to do this. So, for everybody who's got that job, there's 1,000 people that want that job. They have a perception of what it's like. We sometimes joke that everybody wants to work in Formula One until they work in Formula One. But, in this day and age of social media, everyone's posting it. But, people are posting the best bits. They're not posting
the real
the worst bits.
You at 3 a.m. with a cup of coffee.
You're
working on
exactly.
Jet lag.
And that's fine. That's fine. But I'm very conscious of trying not to do that. But it's cool. So you should be excited about it. It is cool.
Yeah.
But then I look at people, in the NFL or rugby that I'm like, that's cool to me. And I've been very fortunate. I've made some relationships in both sports, and to me that's sort of, and so we're all talking about things. So it's whatever floats your boat. But don't get me wrong though, it's much more fun when you're doing well.
Yeah.
If you're going into races knowing you're going to score points and all the rest of it, and when Kevin had the pole position in Brazil last year, that was, and for me the amazing bit was, and again just talking about community, we were walking down the pit lane and people were coming out from other garages and clapping and cheering and all the rest of it. And obviously the guys at Renault and McLaren who he'd raced for before, there was genuine warmth and affection for Kevin and his achievement. And that for me was just like, and when we were waiting to do the interviews, Max came up to me and George, they were just like, oh, it was like, never see you here. It was like, this is all new to me, for these guys, it's bread and butter. But, that's what I find funny. So there's always the hope in the end of the day. We're all racers. We do it because we love it. And Guenther's competitive, Gene's competitive. We know where we're at in the grand scheme of things. And, it's definitely, there's more hope going forward in terms of the cost cap era. You look at what Aston Martin have come from and where they're at now. They're a customer car, sometimes beating the Mercedes car. So, there has to be that hope. And it would be better for the sport if there's more competition.
Oh, 100%.
But, you live in hope.
Yeah. And last question here, working with Guenther and just the Haas team, what was the most memorable moment you have had? Whether it's funny or even embarrassing, what was it?
I'm sure there's probably been lots of embarrassing, or at least times where I'm just like, I can't believe we're actually doing this. There's times when I have to stop Guenther because Guenther is so good and so embracing of everything that it's, like Vegas and Bahrain this year in preseason testing. Vegas had a setup where they wanted to get a lot of content shot, and we walk into the room and they've got the Elvis suit and they say to Guenther, we want you to put the Elvis suit on. I'm like, and he's going to put it on, and I'm like, no. I don't think I want you in an Elvis suit. And you feel a bit like the fun police, but I'm like, we have to draw. But he's so willing and engaged. He doesn't, because he doesn't care what people think of him in that respect.
Clearly.
Generally he doesn't get enough credit for what he's done in terms of, it was his idea to have the team, and obviously he got the funding from Gene invested into it, but Guenther's DNA is kind of throughout this team, and to the point that we have only finished once last, the fact that we've grown as an entity, and we are competitive, we're one of 10 solid teams in the sport now, but I can't think of anything offhand that's kind of particularly embarrassing, but just with Guenther you never know what you're going to get. But the highlights for me, I honestly think Bahrain last year trumped Australia 2016, because that was great that we scored points, but the fact that we bounced back after such a horrible year, and after the whole situation that we had in preseason testing, the Russian situation, and as sad as that is for obviously the people of Ukraine and all the rest of it, it meant we had to make decisions, we had to shift. And so for me, getting Kevin back was huge, because we always had a good relationship. I kept in touch with him the year that he wasn't with us. So, I remember sending him that text to my couch one night saying, I hear a rumor. And he's just like, yep. So, and that was fun, because obviously, when you get a driver that you know how he works and how he ticks, it just makes your life easier. Anytime you have a new driver, there's that element of kind of breaking them in, them seeing how you work, you seeing how they work. And it takes a long time. And it definitely takes, in my mind, a season to form that relationship. And Kevin, from his first year with us in 2017 to his second year in 2018, was night and day, because obviously he'd gone through the process of being dropped by McLaren, being dropped by Renault, and I think there was an element of trust there that he had to build up. But his attitude and approach, not that it was bad in 2017, but you could just see he was more distanced with it. But then when you saw who he was in 2018, and we had a great season in 2018, obviously finished 5th in the championship, the confidence was there. So
incredible.
Perfect.
Well, that is Q2.
I'll give this up to
Green,
you.
purple, Gurple.
No.
Purple?
Okay.
All right.
No red flags.
No red flags. Nothing.
None.
No. We don't give those out. We'll give double yellows though.
Yes.
But no red flags.
And no black and orange flags.
Yeah,
No black and orange flags.
Very sensitive about that.
Well, we're going to hear from a Stuart about Q3 rapid fire coming up very soon. Welcome back to the Track Limits podcast. We are now getting into Q3, the rapid fire round. Stuart, are you nervous?
Very nervous.
You're nervous.
Love it.
Twitchy a little bit there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm white knuckling it. Yeah.
All right. First question. Let's keep the answers rapid, full of fire. If you had to choose one platform to post on forever, other than Facebook, which one would it be?
Instagram.
Instagram. All right.
Which platform would you delete?
The rest.
What regulation change would you institute in F1?
Points down to 14th place.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Which driver would you trust to drive you around the track blindfolded?
Kevin Magnussen.
Hey, okay.
I'm about to show you a photo for audio listeners. This is you and Guenther. What's your favorite memory with Guenther?
Favorite memory? Well, I mean, I spend so much time with him.
Yeah.
I think it's just... I'm not rapid firing at all here, am I now?
You got this.
I think probably actually one of the funniest things was just when we filmed the Netflix thing last year with him and Mattia in the little Fiat Chinkachenko. I mean, seeing these two team principals and both not small individuals fitting into this little car. And of course, it was riddled with cameras and all that. It was just the most bizarre sight you've ever seen. But the end result was what they predicted it would be. And it was like really good content. So that was definitely one of the takeaway memories. And we were in a gorgeous location as well.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful.
Greatest driver of all time, in your opinion?
Very good question. I'm not a huge one for the whole the greatest and all the rest of it. I mean, I'm obviously fiercely patriotic, so Jim Clark, Jackie Stewart are definitely right up there because it was in an era where obviously the danger was real.
Yeah.
They didn't have to deal with all the stuff that we have going on now. So I'll go with my Scots guys.
Nice.
But I won't split them.
Yeah. If you had to work with any team principal other than Guenther, who would that be?
Christian Horner.
Christian Horner.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah, my favorite.
Yeah.
Just because Christian doesn't waste his words. Like he is when he opens his mouth, there's a reason why he's saying what he's saying.
So calculated.
He's so good at being able to get things out there and in cases wind other people up.
Yep.
But I know a lot of people that work with him and they say he's quite a good guy, but he definitely fascinates me in that respect. So very different from Guenther, but I like the way he operates.
Nice. If you had to choose another sport to work in, what sport would it be?
NFL.
Nice.
What's your team, by the way?
Yeah.
Giants.
Okay.
Yeah.
We all make mistakes.
I'll show you the ring for the one since I've been a fan.
It's okay, I know nothing. Which track has the best environment?
I mean, Montreal for sure. I'm somewhat biased, but it always has. I mean, it's been the bedrock of Formula One in North America. I mean, COTA now is truly amazing to go to because you've seen the growth even in the time that Haas has been around. But Montreal was always that rock as far as the North American place because it's an educated audience. They've had obviously Gilles Villeneuve, Jacques Villeneuve, you name it. But people just get behind it. The city gets behind it as well. So and you see more and more people replicating that, but. This is the modern era of Formula One that you need the sport of a city. And I mean, Vegas is going to be nuts this year. Oh, yeah. And I think it's just the minute you can take the sport to the people and make it easier, it's much better. So,
Great. What's your best prediction for the rest of the 2023 season? Give me like one wild prediction that you think will come true.
Gold.
Another pole?
K-Mag pole? Yeah.
I mean, the car's fast in qualifying, so you get the right conditions again. And
could happen.
And, I mean, some people are like, you were lucky in Brazil. No, we did the right job at the right time. And, Kevin's lap was faster than Max's, and it is what it is.
It would have also been a good points finish if it wasn't for the incident.
Yeah, you can't take it away from us in that respect. So, wild prediction, I'm going to say that Alonso will win a race. It's maybe not that wild, but I think they will get one.
Nice. Which F1 driver or team has the best social media presence in your opinion?
Us.
Yes.
I mean, I gotta say that.
Yep.
I agree.
Yeah. I like I said earlier, I think we punch above our weight, and sometimes you're asking the drivers to do silly things like in pre-season, you're doing all the GIF capture and all the rest of it, but sometimes they surprise you and they get really into things that you wouldn't think that they're really into. And don't ask me, for example, because I haven't got anything off the top of my head, but you're just kind of like, all right, this is good.
We can do it.
Let's make this a regular yearly thing.
Exactly.
We might have asked already, but what is the most over asked question you get?
Probably what's Guenther like? Or is it true that he's never watched Drive to Survive? And it's true, he's never watched Drive to Survive.
Oh, didn't know that.
But would he not see it on social media and stuff?
No, he's not on social media either.
Wow.
No burner account?
That you know of?
No, if you see any account that's linked to him, it's not official. He has no social media presence whatsoever.
Got it. What piece of F1 memorabilia would you like to own, or do you currently own that you're super amped about?
I would love a Magnussen helmet, and I am going to badger him at some stage to get one because he's the F1 driver I've worked the longest with. So I'd really like something like that. The driver helmet is it's iconic in that respect. So that would be pretty cool.
Yep. Your favorite F1 driver lineup of all time?
Coulthard and Hakkinen.
Solid. Most embarrassing moment at a Grand Prix weekend?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I must have done something. Yeah, I've probably walked into the glass door in hospitality in front of a sponsor, because we have got the slowest opening glass door you've ever seen, and the button, you could literally stand in a hospitality for hours and watch people trying to get out. It's like a mime. They're doing it because you can't find the button. It's a small little, if you're in it, it's a small little silver button on the left-hand side, but it's not obvious. And so I've probably bumped into the door umpteen times and stuff like that.
In a haste, you must be so awkward just pressing that button, being like...
Yeah,
if we're the stairwell as well. I mean, you come so close to like stacking it. There's a stairwell in the paddock in Belgium is split, and there's a metal cheese grater like stairwell down there. And when it rains, which it always does, you just have that fear of I'm going to stack it here in front of everybody in there. So yeah, I think that would probably. It hasn't happened, but that would definitely be one of the most embarrassing moments. But yeah,
I'm not manifesting.
Yeah.
Or you slip going into the garage, something like that. So because then, of course, you got an audience that is waiting to destroy you.
Last 3 questions. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Flying. Flying, so you could just get somewhere
right away,
like in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
No, I was going to say, what celebrity would be a great fit as a driver for a movie or a TV show outside of Brad Pitt?
I was going to go with Brad. At the moment, good. I mean, he's kind of racing alright, but Michael Fassbender, he's just on Le Mans again, but he's got the looks, he's got the style, he's into his racing. So yeah, I'd probably pick him. He could.
I'm surprised he hasn't done a movie. And
he needs to come back as Magneto first.
Yeah.
Wait.
Come on now.
Is that the fanboy coming out?
Oh,
yeah, you've seen it.
Humongous X-Men fan.
Okay, you're writing an autobiography on your life. Which of these titles resonates best with you? The Daredevil, the Dreamcatcher, the Free Spirit, or the Hardest Worker?
None of them.
You can create one.
You can create your own. Yeah.
I think mine would just be go for it. Which
The
is maybe a bit like the Dreamcatcher.
The go-getter.
Because it's not like I dreamed of getting into Formula One, but I made opportunities, or I sought out opportunities and made things happen. Like I said, I didn't wait. It's just kind of a little bit my personality, and that's it. So, but nobody would read my autobiography. I mean, lots of people say, "Oh, you must have a book in you." I don't.
So the dream-catching hardest worker.
Yeah.
Mix of it all.
Yep.
I love it. Awesome. Purple? I think that's
Oh,
purple.
100%.
Easy.
Well done.
I'll take that. Thank you very much.
Let's go. Pull.
We got it.
We got to get this on the Haas social media.
Yep.
Pull.
I can say what goes on there. That will not go on there. So they wouldn't do it for me.
How dare they?
Just to wrap up, Stuart, we always ask our guests, tell us a little bit about how you want to be remembered in 30 seconds. I know you started off telling us about yourself. How do you want to be remembered? What sort of legacy do you want to leave behind?
I mean, it's a very deep question, but I think ultimately that we just did a good job. That my communications team have one of the better reputations in the paddock for being efficient with journalists, good at communication, internal, external, and that we thought outside the box on some things. But we're kind of there to serve. It's my job to make sure that media have access, and it's the right access, and brief them on the right things. So I think the legacy would be just that we did our business right.
Boom.
Where can people find you on social media if they want to stay in touch, follow the journey?
I'm only on Instagram, and my account is private because I have no desire to be any more
follow the Haas F1
than I am. So just
Haas.
Haas F1 Team. That's simple enough. You'll see me in the background.
There you go.
Love it. If you guys like this episode, please leave a review, drop a comment, and I hope you go and follow us on social media. Definitely follow the Haas F1 Team, and we will see you guys in the next episode. Thanks, Stuart.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a blast.